Damola, let me ask you, should federal government play a role in regulating the housing market, and how can it balance the needs of different stakeholders?
Absolutely. The federal government, hardly limited, but definitely has a role to play. We have seen escalating add-on costs from agents who have taken advantage of Nigerians. Therefore, we need to know, we need to set standards. There can't be, and we've seen some initiative in Lagos around that directive where there's a cap on what should be paid as part of the cost of either rent or homeownership. We've also seen all sorts of players who've taken advantage of Nigerians offering products that do not exist in the name of off-plan without any verifiable title or document or plans to show that they have intent to even construct. So, and defraud unsuspecting Nigerians who want to take advantage of the early entry so that they can reap the benefits of the growth of the capital appreciation of the assets. So definitely there's a role for regulation to ensure that the framework is there to limit or even eliminate these unscrupulous elements that take advantage and increase, because if you look at the actual cost of houses, if you look at the rent side, by the time you add 10% caution, 10% agency, 10% this, 10% that, you're almost at 40-30% of the cost itself, and some of these monies are never returned, So there's role for government, and I do know that there's a Senate bill that is in process, and I'm sure they will definitely work with the Ministry of Housing to harmonize what kind of regulation should be in place, but we cannot over-regulate the industry, as we need private sector to have the confidence that they would not have their investment stalled by one regulation or the other. But we need to weed the industry out of elements that take advantage of Nigerians.
Okay, it's 2 years of the Tinubu administration. As we begin to wind down this program, I want to ask you this question. Where do you see the housing sector at the end of the first term of President Tinubu?
Honestly, 2 years, we're just 2 years into the government of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and let's start with the size of the industry. We've seen the real estate industry outpace other sectors, becoming one of the top 5 largest, fastest growing sectors in Nigeria, which is credit to the President and the Honorable Minister. We've also seen the real estate sector overtake the popular oil and gas industry, becoming the 3rd largest sector behind agriculture and trade, according to the Nigeria Bureau of Statistics. So that alone tells you, from a macro factor, what has happened in 2 short years, that we have seen. We've also seen a departure from the past, where, which with good intent, the government has did their best to deliver 8,000, or eventually 3,005 was delivered at the end of the last administration. And we're talking about 5 to 10,000 being commissioned within the second year of this administration. So 8 years, 2 years, I think we can do the maths and tell what the story looks like. Before now, private sector's participation in industry was 0. Now private sector is at 70, almost matching the budget.
What do you think is responsible for that?
Leadership is very important. We've seen leadership on the part of the President, and we have a very energetic minister who is not an armchair minister, so you can be sure he would inspect and hold you accountable to whatever you have committed to do. And also creating and coming in with that private sector thinking to actually say, what is the real intent or the common objective here? How do we ensure that we meet somewhere in between? In the past, PPP engagements have been skewed in such a way that they've been very unviable. So people want to live close to town would have to pay the price of close to town. People that want to stay a little bit further will pay what is required to do that. So we can actually dimension what people's needs are and not put everybody in the bucket and expect that they would all fit. And through this collaboration, we've now seen that, okay, if the ministry provides land access, we can reduce the cost of houses by, say, 10-15%.
Okay.
If we have additional, government-owned enterprise funding, we can reduce it again by another 15%. So that kind of collaboration is how we get to affordable housing, not when both parties are talking from different perspective. So we've seen that change. We've also seen private sector mobilize capital into that space. We've seen how the pension funds are responding to initiative of this government, mobilizing 100 billion to support the 150 billion that has been committed as seed funding to the Mofi Real Estate Investment Fund. So you can see that the role of government really is to provide the enabling environment. That's really the role of government, and they allow for private sector players to thrive. And this is the policy direction of this administration, and under the leadership of the Honourable Minister, that is different. That our job is to provide the environment, your job is to ensure that we deliver for Nigerians.